as you saw in the video, we say it will change your life, and that might sound a bit self-confident, I don't know, but that is the testimonials we get. We know that this actually change people's lives, teachers and students. If it might change the world, we also say, I think that is yet to see. but that is, of course, the prospect. And I think also it's interesting to take part in this, how national and local levels are connected to the global setting. That you have a common understanding, you have a room for meetings, and you discuss the problems, and everyone can contribute on the same terms. And then you have local solutions, and they are so different, and sometimes similar, but often so different and adapted to local conditions. So there is a natural connection here between industrialized and developing countries. And it is not that easy that industrialized countries always know what to do and tell the developing countries. Very many times, the most clever and workable solutions come from our groups in developing countries. So there is an exchange of experience there. And I think all this, in part, these qualities with the Young Masters program has to do with the origin at this institute, the IIIEE Institute in Sweden, where we both work. Because this is a sustainability, we're working with sustainability challenges, but we are focused on solutions. There are very many institutes around the world that are describing environmental problems or sustainability problems. And yes, we know them, and we know them by heart, but we are working with solutions. So what we'd like to offer is a toolbox for students. This is the way you can go about if you want to solve problems.
So obviously the big question is, what exactly is the YMP? And it is challenging to stand here and explain what it is. This is why we're using films and pictures and projects and so on, because you really need to experience it. But we like to describe it as a global web-based education and learning network for ESD. So it's more than just putting students in front of computers and them tapping away and chatting. And it's really about creating these learning networks with many different parts and many different players. It's also fair to say that everything's changed with the internet and social media. It's opening up so many new opportunities, and that's what Torvald is talking about. I mean, the Young Masters program has been operating now since 1999, and we've had about 20,000 students go through. But the possibilities are just extraordinary, really. I mean, the last point here, you can see that the capacity at the end of this year will be about 200,000 students, and the capacity next year will be about 1 million students. And I'm sure you're all on Facebook and Twitter maybe and these other kinds of social media. I mean, the possibilities for upscaling are just so great and exciting. But with the Young Masters program, we try to use the internet and social media and these things to work with young students. And we're particularly interested in 16 to 18 years old. And there's a reason for that, because that's just before young people head into university, head into their careers. They're making a lot of decisions at that part of their life, and you can really get in and have an influence on them at that point. Of course, we need ESD across all education, but we choose that focal point, that time in their lives, to try to influence them. Another really important part about the YMP and the use of the internet and web-based education is what we're creating now is kind of a user-created, real-time, real-life case gallery. And what that means is the assignments and the project works and the inputs of the users, the students in the YMP, become content in the Young Masters program. And this is some of the best kind of content you can have, because it's from real life, it's right now, it's the things they experience. And when you combine that with scientific knowledge, the kind of knowledge that Thomas Johansson talked about and others, you really have something quite powerful and interesting. And that's what we hope the YMP will become over time.
So sometimes we say that we had this vision, we had it early, and we have been waiting for the internet to, to develop, so that we could, and now everything is in place. You have the open source code that we need, we have the social networks, we have people that are used to work in this kind of environment. So you can say that the internet has now developed so far that it's possible to take this vision all the way.
In fact, you might even say the internet has run right past us and is flying away in front of us.
And then some basic information. This is all on the web page, and it's very, very self-instructive, as you will see. We have tried to, also based on the experiences we have with people from different parts of the world and different understanding of English, and so we have tried to make it really easy to take part in this. It's self-explanatory. It takes you step by step into the program. It explains how different things work on the platform. But basically what we do, the atom in the system, or the core element of the system, is a small group of students, 3 to 5 students. And if you are a teacher and you have a class of 25 students, you can divide your class into 5 or 6 groups. All of these small groups will be allocated to a different global classroom. So as you can see, the contact between the class, physical class in the classroom, and the world is really big, because all of the small groups have a slightly different feedback community that they are working with. And this opens for a possibility to work not only online in the global classrooms, but also to disseminate the findings from the sessions in the global classrooms physically, locally, in your own classroom. Because everyone has something to say. In one group there might be groups from Indonesia, and in another one there is groups from Mongolia, and they have different takes on the same assignment. And this means that there is a switch between online and offline, and the offline activities, they are often outside the school. So we ask the students to turn off the computer, get out and find out about something, come back and share it with the others and compare the notes, and then you get insight. And you have a possibility to work with this as a local teacher in your classroom, and the teachers are also involved in this. That is also something that is special with the YMP. It's not like you can have a cup of coffee while the students are taking the e-learning course. The teachers are involved in this. But sometimes we say that what the YMP does is that it opens a window to the world from the classroom. Instead of mimicrying, reinventing the classroom in the computer, we think differently. We think that distance learning could add value to the situations where the students already are in a physical classroom, and open a window to the world from that classroom.
So obviously it's probably coming through, but it's very important to talk about the experiences of participants in the program. And as Torvald just said, there are 2 very big groups. One is students and one is teachers, and they've both got to come along for the ride. You can't just take the students or just the teachers. You've got to bring them both with you. And for the students, we get a lot of feedback, obviously, and we also from the teachers. But some of the feedback we get from the students is it is very empowering for them. That's maybe not the word they use, but what happens is, they are learning about sustainability challenges that are very, very big, but yet we help them to make them small, in a sense, and help them to kind of work through these challenges so they feel they can actually do something about them and be part of some kind of larger community. Another key word we get is fun. They tell us that it's fun. And look, if you work in education, when you combine education and fun, you can really go places. If you get these 2 things together, it's really very good. They develop visions. This is really exciting. It's fun for me to see the visions which they create. They create global visions, national visions, and local visions about the kind of world that they would like to live in. And then they think about how they're going to get there. They think about ideas and be creative and so on, and then they try to apply these ideas. And that's also another step in the Young Master Program we really push. You have to try to apply them. You have to go out there and try something. It might fail. That's not the point. The point is to apply it and learn from that kind of experience. And knowing the world, Torvald just talked about that. The internet, and particularly with the Young Masters Program, opens up a world to young students that they would never have otherwise. They meet people through the Young Masters Program they would never meet in their daily lives. You literally have people sitting in China, talking to people in Australia, talking to people in Mongolia, talking to people in Paris and France. That kind of connectivity between the students is really exciting.
And it's a bit like a school, actually. If you compare Facebook with this, Facebook is for gathering your social network that you already have and keep it handy. But this is actually meeting people that you would never met otherwise. So you create a personal international network that the students keep it afterwards. And then, of course, all those things happen when that in Young Masters program that always happen when you connect people, that they go and visit each other, they start projects that are outside of this, but it could be a starting point for very many young people to have a personal international network of their own. And then for teachers, one thing that many teachers ask us is, how can I fit this into the local curricula? The local curricula or the national curricula, that's the big problem. But what we can see is that this actually catalyzes ESD into the local curricula because students want to take part, teachers want to take part, and after a year or two, they start to have discussions among the teachers. How can we translate this into credits and make it a part of our local curricula? How can we make this a part of a course that we can give here at the school? Because typically, as a starting point, students and teachers do this on a voluntary basis, on the side of the regular schoolwork. But we see it all over the world that it's integrated into local curricula. So it could actually be a way to catalyze ESD into local curricula. We are safe to say that.
Okay, this slide, just like to talk a little bit about educational theory. Now, before you all start falling asleep, I'm just going to talk about it quickly. It's actually very interesting, it's very simple, and it's very, very important with this type of education. It's well established in educational theory that there's two main approaches students take to learning. One's called the surface approach, one's called the deep approach. I think you can probably get how they both work. But the surface approach basically means you just try to complete tasks and that's it. The deep approach means you go a bit deeper, a bit further, you look for meaning, look for patterns, you ask questions, you argue and so on. We've all been students and probably many of us are teachers. I'm sure that we've all applied these different approaches and you know what I'm talking about. But this is a real challenge for web-based education, particularly kind of traditional e-learning, that students basically sit in front of a computer and just apply the surface approach. This is no good if we're talking about education for sustainable development. We have to have a deep approach. We must have that approach. So the YMP, as you've heard, as we've been talking, really tries to develop that kind of learning architecture and tries to create an environment which promotes a deep approach. It's also very important to say that students are not a surface or deep learner. Students select the surface or deep approach and they move between those approaches and mix those approaches together when they're learning. And one of the key factors for influencing that decision that a student takes is, of course, teachers and the teaching style and the overall kind of learning architecture, as we all know. And the YMP, what we really try to do is try to create that learning architecture, that kind of environment which stimulates a deep approach, which encourages a deep approach, but also working directly with the teachers who are on site in these classrooms and ensuring that there is a vibrant network and interactions between those teachers, because those teachers are fundamental to this program, to all types of education, but particularly to education for sustainable development. They need to be just as excited as the students. They need to be there, ready to go, ready to do these things. Go outside the classroom, get on the internet, get involved. And so this is a very important part of the YMP and certainly a very important part of ESD generally.